Hi guys, it is Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing and I'm here with another weekly wrap up. So I'm going to get straight into it as I have so much to talk about today. The first book that I finished since last week's wrap up was a graphic novel, and it was Saga Volume 2 by, by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. So this is obviously the second volume of Saga, which is kind of a sci-fi-esque story, and it's about these two different people who are kind of these different kind of species, and they have a baby and they're on the run from all these different kind of government forces that are all trying to kill them. And I really enjoyed this. This one took me a lot shorter to read than the other one. Maybe I just got into the story a lot quicker, but I gave it a really solid 4 stars. I'm just not that much into graphic novels yet, where I think I can give it 5 stars. But again, I really enjoyed this one, got into it really quickly. Really like this graphic novel series so far, and I'll definitely be continuing on with it. Next book I read is a book that was sent to me by Penguin Random House Ireland for an honest review, and it was The Good Mother by Sinead Moriarty. This is about a woman called Kate who's going through kind of a bad separation from her husband. She's kind of been left with her 3 children, and she's more or less raising them on her own, as her ex has a new girlfriend and a new baby, and he's preoccupied with them, starting to get things sorted out. And their middle child, who is their only daughter, Jess, ends up getting diagnosed with leukemia. And it's kind of the story about a mother's love and how far a mother's love will go when a child is sick. And there's a lot of kind of moral questions raised in terms of sickness, and when it's right to kind of give up and when it's right to keep carrying on, and what you can do for your child who is sick. I gave this one a 3 stars because I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I read it really quickly. I read it in within a day. Once I got into the story, it's a very quick story. It's quite an emotional read as well. I guess if people don't like reading about particularly children who are sick, this would be very hard, because Jess is only about 12 in this, 13, so she's quite young obviously, and just, you know, a lot of it is just really a parent struggle watching their child being sick and not being able to do anything about it. And then it's also focusing on the rest of the family, how it's kind of affecting the little brother who's, you know, doesn't really understand what's going on properly. He has a lot of anger issues and how that kind of comes out. And then there's the older brother who's going through stuff with his girlfriend, and then he has stuff himself, in terms of just school. He's doing his exams, and then he has sports team and stuff like that, and it's kind of how everything is just affecting everybody in the family. And then how kind of the husband, or the ex-husband, how he is kind of connecting with the rest of the family again, and how this can kind of brings them together but also forces them apart in all different ways. I'd a lot of Jess, I really liked her point of views that we got sometimes. There was a point, there was different points in the book where you got a diary from the 7-year-old brother, and I just didn't really like that part because I didn't think it was that necessary. But again, the brother is kind of, the way he's written, he's really into facts, and he loves the Guinness Book World of Records, and he's able to memorize all these facts, so he's quite clever. But then in his diary, he wasn't spelling properly, and things were really childish. And even though he was only 7, I kind of felt because he was being portrayed in other times as being so smart, I didn't think the diary kind of reflected how smart he was. And I feel it could have actually have been more you know, the spelling could have been better, and it didn't have to be so childish. But I think that's just a pet peeve of mine. I'm not really mad about how children are sometimes portrayed in books, where they're just really cutesy and all that kind of stuff, where I feel you know, kids can just be little adults at times. They don't have to be written like that all the time. But for the most part he wasn't. It was just in the diary part, so that's just kind of, I just didn't really care for those parts. The ending, I didn't have a problem with the ending, just in terms of my own personal beliefs. It's something I would support. I think people who don't, I don't want to say too much obviously, but for people who have particular issues around what is brought up in this, I think people could have issues around it, but I think you just have to read it to see. There was this French character in it, and she was used as kind of a bit of humour, just her own kind of the way she would talk to people and be really blunt with them. But I do feel she almost became kind of a caricature of a French person, and I think if I was French I'd be a little bit I don't know, I'd just be a little bit annoyed at how French people were portrayed with this character. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, and yeah, so if anyone is just looking for kind of a bit of an emotional read, this is probably one to pick up. The next book I finished was The Exiled Queen by Cinda Chima. This is the second book in the 7 Realms series, and I read The Demon King, which is the first book, a while ago, and I really loved it, and I loved this one just as much. So this one is just carrying on with this kind of fantasy world, and we have 2 different characters. We have Hans Alistair, who is a kind of former street lord turned kind of hunter, I guess, and then we have Princess Raisa, who is going to become queen of this land, and their stories are kind of interwoven, and they kind of meet and go like come apart and then meet again in the first book, and then the second book is obviously following on with a lot of stuff that happened at the end, where a lot of like turmoil was brought up and a lot of stuff happened, and I can't really say too much because otherwise I'm just spoiling everything. And again, this, as I said in the last one, this series is actually really hard to describe, and I find it really hard to describe because a lot of things are happening, and I know it's just really hard to sum it down into like one sentence or a couple of sentences and what's happening, because it won't make any sense. So all I will say is that I really, really love this one. I loved where it went. I love the character development. I love Cinda William Chima, the way she writes her characters, because they are so well developed. They are so well rounded. Like, there's so many different parts of them. They are so human. They're not flat at all. They don't just have this one side of them. They have so many different sides of them, and they can just really interchange themselves depending on who they're with and who they have to be in that point in the world, like in their own journey, who they have to be when they're talking to different people. And I just love that because I feel like it's so real and it's so human, and I just really, really love her writing. I really love how this ended off, and I cannot wait to pick up the third one because I am just loving this series so much. I'm definitely going to be picking up, she has another series out at the moment, I think it's called like Flamecaster or something along those lines, but I'm definitely going to be picking it up because I'm loving her writing. It obviously just really, really clicks with me, so I cannot wait to continue on and read everything else that she writes. And I gave that one a 5 stars if I didn't say that already. Next book I read was one I got from NetGalley, and it is The Orphan's Tale by Pam Jenoff. This is a World War II story set in Germany and France, but it has a little bit of a twist because it's set in a circus during World War II, which is like something I have never encountered before. So I was really looking forward to going into this one and seeing what it would be like. So this story follows the lives of two different women. We have a young girl called Noah who is working at this train station in Germany. The day when she's working at this train station, there's like these train carts, and she finds a bunch of babies stuffed in this one train cart going to a concentration camp, and before she can even think about it, she grabs one of the babies and kind of makes a run for it to save him, and she ends up getting brought in by this circus which is nearby, and she meets Ingrid, who is a Jewish woman. So she's going by the name of Astrid, but she is basically an aerialist, and she can do all these amazing tricks in the air, and she grew up in a circus herself, but she's currently kind of hiding out in this one circus because obviously she's a Jewish woman, so you know she has to disguise herself. So Noah is basically taken in by the circus, and she ends up being trained by Ingrid / Astrid to become an aerialist as well, while they're also helping her take care of the baby who she names Theo. And Noah herself has a lot of secrets about her past and why she came to be at that train station working and not with her family in the Netherlands because she is Dutch. And then, you know, Astrid herself also has a past that she was running away from, and she has a family that she's looking for as well. So these women are very, very different, but they kind of have this really nice connection as well, and this kind of friendship, kind of a fraught friendship, kind of develops between them, and it kind of goes from there. I did enjoy this for the most part. There were some parts I didn't quite like about it, but I do think that with the relationship the women form and the way it goes about and the way they look after each other, I think people who liked The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna would enjoy this book. It's not written quite as well as The Nightingale. This is still really good in terms of female friendships, a look at the war in a different way than what we're used to seeing. Like, the circus during the war is something I would never even have thought about. I didn't even think it would happen, but there were circuses during during the war. Things I didn't quite like was a relationship that formed between Noah and this guy called Luke. It felt like it was a bit insta-lovey, like it was just really strange. After like 2 times he saw her, he was basically saying that he loved her, and I was just like, alright, like you have had like one conversation, how do you know you love her? But I did really love as well just the training and the descriptions of them in the air and the way they kind of learned how to do their tricks, and it was just really, really clear in my mind what they were doing. I could like see the circus in my mind and the trapeze artists and the aerialists doing their tricks, and yeah, it's just one of those times I really would love like a screen to see in my mind what I was reading on screen, because I think it would look really, really cool. cool. So yeah, I gave this a 3.5 stars. The audiobook I finished this week is one I've been reading for the last couple of weeks, and that is Sofia Khan is Not Obliged by Ayisha Malik. And this is basically the story of a Muslim woman living in London, and it's kind of her own kind of trials and tribulations in the dating world, where she's trying to find a Muslim guy to basically date and to eventually marry, and the pressure that she's under from her family to get married. And she ends up getting kind of a book deal by her job. She works as a publicist, but she ends up getting a book deal by the people she works with to write a book about Muslim dating. And it's just this kind of humorous account of this woman kind of just trying to find someone nice to marry. And I really, really enjoyed this one. I thought the audiobook was great. I think it's read by Rita Sharma, I think her name was. The accents really, really well, like all the Pakistani families' accents were spot on, they were so great. There was one guy who was American, the accent wasn't so great, but most of the accents were really, really spot on. I really enjoyed listening to them. I just love Sofia. She's just someone you can really, really kind of just connect with. Loved the fact that it was going one place. I was pretty confident near the start of the book where it was going, and I was like, I can totally see how this is going to end. But then halfway through the book it like changed, and I was like, ooh, maybe it's going to end this way, and then it did, and I was just so happy the way it ended, because I just loved there was just this little bit of a twist, and my entire like viewpoint of how the book was going to be changed, and I just loved that. I loved her relationship with her family. It was lovely, and her friends. She had a really, really great friends group, and obviously her family were always there for her as well, and I just loved all that. I loved the fact that she's a hijabi, so she wears hijab, but her family don't wear hijab, like her sisters and her sister and some of her friends and her mother wouldn't wear hijab, so she's, as well as kind of getting some opinions from like, you know, the white community around her about her hijab, she's also kind of getting it from her mother. And I just loved the way she talked about her faith and God and her relationship with God and stuff a lot. And I feel like, you know, even people who aren't Muslim but might be religious, like in other senses, might be a Christian, or like whatever you are, whatever you believe in, or even if you're just spiritual, you don't necessarily have to believe in God, but you might be a spiritual person. I feel like the way she talked about some things could really connect with a lot of people, and I just really liked the way she said some things about her own relationship with God, and why God was important to her, and why it was important to her to find a man who also believed in God, who also believed in Allah, who also was a practicing Muslim, and why it was important for her. And I just loved all of that. I just thought it was a really great viewpoint, something that I wouldn't read about a lot. Obviously this is diverse and its own voices, so yeah, I just really, really enjoyed that kind of just viewpoint of it, and I loved how it ended. And there's a second book coming out in April, and I actually got approved for it on NetGalley, so I'm going to be reading that really soon because I just love her so much, and I can't wait to continue on with her adventures. And I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I finished this week was Sugar by Kimberly Stuart. This is another NetGalley book, and this is about a girl called Charlie, or a woman called Charlie, and she is a kind of a pastry chef in this like really, really fancy restaurant under this really kind of famous chef, and she basically is being underappreciated and overworked, and then her boyfriend comes along, her ex-boyfriend, and he offers her another job, run her own kitchen as a pastry chef in Seattle. So she ends up quitting her job in New York, moving to Seattle for this new job, and then she ends up finding out that her ex kind of lied to her, and even though she does have her own kitchen, she is also going to be starring in this reality TV show about kind of the kitchen, these famous kitchens behind the scenes kind of thing. So she has like a lot of like going on, and then she kind of meets a guy, and there's a little bit of romance and all that kind of stuff. I liked this kind of. I enjoyed the scenes in the kitchens, and I enjoyed the way she described her food and how she was making the food. Like if people like things like MasterChef or Great British Bake Off or Chef's Table or something like that, I think they would really enjoy this because it's like top-notch food being made by top-notch chefs, and just the way everything is described just sounds like really, really nice. So yeah, so I did really enjoy all those descriptions of the kitchen, but I really, 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 really hated Charlie as the main character. She was a horrible person. She was really, really stuck up. Like, she was the most stuck up character I've read about in a really long time. Could not stand her. Like, at one point, this guy she meets she's like, oh, I work with food. And he's like, oh, you're a cook. And she's like, I am not a cook. I am a chef and I was a chef in a Michelin-starred restaurant. And I was like, whoa, okay, like, cook, chef, like, tomato, okay, like, Jesus. And I don't know, just the way she went on about things, I just really hated. And she kind of made these snide comments a few times that I just really didn't like either. like that she had a best friend who had a few kids, and every time her friend was around the kids would be like hanging out of her. For some reason this friend would never appear without her children, and I feel like the friend was used so Charlie could make all these kind of comments about like the children being dirty and the children being loud and the children being this, that and the other. Even though she liked the kids, she would always make a comment about the kids, and I was just like, okay, but like why can't we just have this character who is her best friend be without her kids for once, you know what I mean? Or she's just been literally being used as this kind of ploy. Like I just didn't like that. And then she also made this point about her friend's body like finally being back to shape after it had been distorted by all the pregnancies, and I don't know, there was just something about that just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know what it was. And then there was another character they met at one point, like this old man. She was like going to this guy's family and they met this man at the side of the road that he knew, and he started saying how like he never met a real woman on this road, and all the women he usually meets are like tomboys who don't shave and don't know how to shower. And I was just like, how do you like, I don't know, I didn't know how to react to that comment. I was a bit like, okay, like this is kind of weird, like why did that have to be there? Like I don't know, I just don't know why that had to be added in, and I just didn't really like that. So there were all these kind of like weird side comments by characters that I just felt weird about and I just didn't like, and but I don't know whether I'm just being like silly about it or what it is. So let me know what you would think about those kind of comments, because I would love to know if I'm just overreacting to them and just being like sensitive or something, I don't know. But they just kind of annoyed me. And as well, her relationship with the guy she meets, Kai, like it went really fast, really quickly for like some reason. Like they went on like one date, and then the second date was like a double date with friends, and the third date was like her meeting his entire family, and I was like, whoa, like why is this going so fast? Like this, it just was really weird. And then he got really weird and possessive over like her time and her job and stuff, even though he knew her job meant a lot to her, and like he would get just really annoyed about her working so many hours, and it's like, you went into this relationship knowing she worked that many hours, so what are you complaining about? Yeah, I just didn't really like it. So I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars in the end, as you can probably guess, because I didn't really like it. The only bits I did like were the food description bits, so everything else I didn't really like. So yeah, so please let me know your thoughts on all the books that I've read this week. I would love to know. Please let me know what you are reading, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye.